you can take all the classes that you want, but like it's once you start implementing is when you really start to see that change. And so I took the challenge. I was like, let's start implementing it right now.
It's so powerful. And it like seems so woo-woo in the moment. You're like, what the are we talking about? Like, what do you mean reactivity? What do you mean the vessel? What do you mean emotional intelligence? Just tell me what to do to open my salon. But in reality, like you need those tools in order to remain sane. Hello and welcome to the Elevate podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Nowakowski. I'm a salon owner, educator, mindset, and leadership coach that helps salon owners go from overwhelmed and burnt out to motivated and empowered. It is my mission to help you systemize your business, generate more profit, and create a career that you love. Join us every week to learn about the small shifts you can make to elevate your business regarding mindset, marketing, social media, business systems, and so much more. Welcome to this week's episode of the Elevate podcast. We have MJ Jackson, who is one of my past students and currently a coach at DTH. So MJ, take a moment to introduce yourself and kind of give us your backstory of how you got started in the industry.
So I'm MJ Jackson. I am in Seattle, Washington. I own a commissioned salon. And as Patricia said, I'm also a coach for Destroy The Hairdresser. And I guess a little bit about my backstory is I started in a commissioned salon and I worked in the salon where I really just didn't have to do very much. I just showed up, how to do hair, and that was my main focus. They took care of the booking, the marketing, like we had a full-on marketing team. But after a while, I just felt like I wanted to do my own thing. And so I started my first salon, and I had that for a few years. And at that time, I did not have a coach, and I didn't love being a salon owner. And so I went back to the commission salon that I worked for until I got the itch to do it again. And then the second time around, I figured it would be best to get a coach. And so that's what I did. And that's how I ended up connecting with you.
Okay, I have a couple questions. So one, How was it going from salon owner back into a commission salon?
Actually, at the time, I felt relieved because I think the first time I opened a salon, I had a lot of clientele, and I think that I was just like young and just like, let's get it and do it. But I didn't have, I think, a lot of the emotional intelligence part of it. So I kind of felt relieved because in that stage of life, I just wanted to hang out, party, do my clients. I did not want the responsibility of owning a salon, even though I had like the clientele and all the things. So I was doing it the first time just because I felt like people were telling me that my next step should be.
So you really didn't have the desire. It was just kind of like, okay, I want to move to the next step. And this is just the assumption of what that is, which I feel like so many people do. Mm-hmm. So what were some like telltale signs that first time around that you're like, okay, I'm just like over this, besides not wanting the responsibility? Did you open that salon with a partner? It was with a partner?
Yes, actually. So I had a partner. So I think some of the signs, I think that for one, I had started with my best friend and I did not talk about business first. Like we were just like, we're good friends. We both want the same thing. And I just assumed, and we actually didn't sit down and talk about what our vision was ultimately for the salon. I think that it was just kind of in the moment. We were just tired of working for someone. I was really successful at the time. She was, and we were like, let's just open a salon together. And we didn't take care of business first. And I started to feel like I was doing a lot of work. And we just weren't on the same page. And I think that having a coach at that time would have been so beneficial. I think it would have worked wonders for my business, honestly.
So we started coaching together, and I think we coached together for 9 months. Was it 9 months? Mm-hmm. And through that process, we opened your salon together. I like to say we opened it together, even though I just was I was going along on the ride with you. So tell me, like, what was the difference between opening the salon without a coach and with having a coach? Like, what's the main point of difference? If you've been feeling overwhelmed and overworked from owning your salon, you're not alone. If you're like many salon owners, you want to build a salon that makes you feel fulfilled and passionate while bringing freedom and flexibility to your life. You're exhausted from taking on all your business tasks alone, but it doesn't have to be this way. It's time for change. The Elevated Salon Owner Collective will help you do just that. You'll automate your salon, implement solid business systems, transform your salon culture, take charge of your online presence, and regain freedom. Doors officially open, and I'd love for you to experience freedom and fulfillment in your business. To learn more, visit opulentbeautypro.com/elevate or click the link in the show notes.
Oh, there was a lot. I think the first one, first of all, it was nice to have an outside perspective because I think especially in the first situation where it was like me with a business partner, it would have been nice to have that outside perspective. So that was really nice. And I think also being a salon owner, I think can be really lonely. So having you there to bounce ideas off of or get guidance from, and just the fact that you were doing a lot of the things that you were coaching me to do already, like when it came down to hiring and creating systems, like you were doing those things in your business already. So I got to see firsthand that they do work. It gave me a level of trust and respect because you were doing the things.
Yeah. I mean, I think getting advice from people who've actually done the thing that you want to do, I feel like that's a way, one, to build that trust and the reassurance. And then, of course, like not everyone's results are going to be the same and not every single thing is going to work. But I think the powerful thing about having a coach is that sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So you think and assume that something has to be done a certain way. And when that outside perspective is like, well, you could do it that way, or we could try it this way. And having the option, and having the clarity and the outside input is something that definitely can just make the process easier.
I agree.
So while going through your salon, what would you say was the most difficult thing and the difficult part of the process?
I think really just getting out of my own way, getting out of my own head. I think that subconsciously I knew a lot of the things that I needed to do to be successful, but it was nice to have you there to hold me accountable. So I think the accountability was priceless because, I would tell you my goals and you would just flat out say, okay, like, why have you not done these steps to get to your goals? And I really had no excuse because I'm the owner. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really just fell on me. And to your point that you brought up earlier, there's some things that you have said when I was a coach that just now make sense to me. And I was like, wow, she was really preparing me and I couldn't even process it at the time. And like, now I'm like, oh, I get what you were talking about.
Yeah, it's like those little nuggets that we kind of like drop into your brain and then they open up when the timing is right or when you actually like have the experience or go through that difficult part and you're like, oh shit, this is what they were talking about.
Exactly.
Now I know.
Exactly.
So like you opened your salon, which is amazing. And then DTH was like, hey, we think you should be a coach.
Yes.
What do you think prepared you to actually take on that role? Because it's a role that comes with responsibility and it's a role that it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So having the salon and the coaching is a lot to juggle.
It is.
So what do you think prepared you and actually like made you stand out when it came to being chosen to be a coach?
I think that the previous experience, I had previous experience like managing, I wouldn't say like managing, but like coaching stylists that were fresh out of beauty school. So that was kind of what my background was. So I did that on top of working behind the chair. I think that, and I think a lot of the emotional intelligence stuff too. When I was a student, one thing that really stuck out is you asked me how I wanted to feel in my business, how I wanted clients to feel in my business. And I think that was something I'd never really thought about. I was thinking about it more from a technical standpoint of, I want to have a beautiful salon and I want to have like great work that goes out of it. But I think stopping and really focusing on that emotional intelligence part of it, because I mean, there's so much more, that we can learn from, just doing great hair. And there's a lot more reward that comes from it once you tap into like your actual desires and what you want out of it.
Yeah, I don't think people actually realize that we're just chasing a feeling. We're not chasing money. We're not chasing success, because that definition is going to be different for every single person. We're chasing the way we want to feel. And when we can dial in and really figure out what that feeling is and what that feeling is not, it gives you a lot of information and it gives you a lot of insight on how to actually create that for yourself. Yes. For example, freedom. You might want to feel free, and owning a salon not necessarily will make you feel that way, right? Like you think it's going to make you feel that way, or you think that's what's going to happen, but it might make you feel trapped.
Yeah. And it also helps you. I mean, also too, to that point, like for someone that wants to feel freedom. So like that was one of my feelings I like to feel. And so you're right. Like it's not as freeing in the day to day. I have a lot of responsibility. I have to show up for my team. I have to show up for myself. But I do get freedom in other areas, especially like creatively. It's been nice to have fun with like the branding and, why I do what I do and all of that stuff. So.
Yeah. And when you understand the feeling of it too, then you can set your business up to create that for you. Yes. Like having the systems in place, not micromanaging your team, and working on your mindset and your emotional intelligence to have the ability for that, right? Because a lot of us want to control everything that happens in our business, which again is going to create a prison for you. So the feelings really do kind of create a roadmap for
100%.
For your destination.
For everything, really, even when it comes to hiring, because if I know that I want to feel free in my business, not so much am I going to hire someone that wants to ask me questions every 2 seconds, or they're not critical thinkers, because that is just going to make, it's just going to tie me down, because I'm going to be constantly having to answer these questions. So I think when you tap into like how you want to feel, it really does affect almost every area of your business.
Yeah, I love that. That's so powerful. So if you don't know how you want to feel, anyone who's listening to this, please take a moment and figure out what your most and least desired feeling is. If you don't know how to do that, Destroy the Hairdresser actually has some free resources on the foundations of what we teach. And that's going to be on reactivity, emotional intelligence, which is where you're going to find the missing piece to figure out what your most and least desired feeling is. And of course, the vessel, which are the 3 main components to coaching, which I think one of the reasons why, like, I was like, yes, he needs to be a coach, was because you really understood those concepts and you really knew how to utilize those things when you were opening your business. Like most people who open a salon are like, it's chaotic, it's crazy, it's very reactive. And I feel like through the entire process, you were very just like calm and just like matter of fact and to the point. One, probably because you've experienced it before, but 2, because you actually dove into the tools you needed in order to have that sort of mindset in order to create that.
I agree, because the second time around actually felt a lot harder. Like I thought it was going to be easier, because I was like, these are all things that I've done before, but I was looking at it through a different lens, because before when I, if I blew up at someone, I kind of had that excuse because I didn't like know better. But like when you know better, you are expected to do better. And so I think that when I was going through coaching and you're teaching me these tools to manage, my feelings and all of that stuff, I looked at it like a test. Like I have to instantly implement it, because you can take all the classes that you want, but like it's once you start implementing is when you really start to see that change. And so I took the challenge. I was like, let's start implementing it right now.
It's so powerful. And it like seems so woo-woo in the moment. You're like, what the are we talking about? Like, what do you mean reactivity? What do you mean the vessel? What do you mean emotional intelligence? Just tell me what to do to open my salon. Yes. But in reality, like you need those tools in order to remain sane.
Yeah. Because
to be a good leader.
Yeah. And like, we only get so much energy. And it's like, if you're allowing all of these like little things to just take and take and take, like you're not going to have energy for the things that actually matter. So one of the biggest takeaways I got was to just really like focus on what matters, and like the little things that are taking away from my energy, like it just doesn't matter. And that helped me stay calm. Okay. So,
I want to talk about like the coaching aspect, because now you've gone through coaching, you went through the entire curriculum for DTH, you've opened your salon, you actually moved to a bigger role, like with a salon owner and then with being a coach. How was the process, and how are you feeling now that you are actually helping other people open their businesses and guiding them through all of the foundations and doing kind of what you went through? Like, what is that experience like for you?
I will say it's been different. Like I thought coming into it, I'm like, oh, it's easy. I got this. But it actually is, it's more challenging than I thought it would be, but it's also really rewarding. It's a lot more rewarding than I thought it would be as well. It is nice to be able to talk to salon owners and try to spare them the mistakes that I made, or offer some sort of foresight as to what they can. I mean, everyone's experience is going to be different, but I can share kind of what I've learned along the way. But also too, I also had to understand that people, even with myself, like I could try to learn from someone else's mistakes, but sometimes you have to make the mistake yourself. So I think that the biggest learning lesson is just that it is a lot harder than I thought, but it is worth it.
Yeah, I would say coaching is one of my favorite things. I just had so much growth. Like I've had my salon for 11 years, but the process of going through coaching, like it was such a struggle. Those first, I would say I was in coaching for, 4 years. I think it's maybe even 5 years that I've been like just intertwined with DTH. So those first 5 years were so chaotic and so reactive. And then, when I enrolled in coaching and I was like, working with David, that's when I really started to have a real shift in everything that I was doing, my mindset and the way I did my business. And it was a slow process, and it was a hurtful. I mean, it was very difficult because you have to look at yourself and really, take full responsibility for everything happening. But I think I had so much growth, and I am just like so grateful that I get to be that and go through that process with the students that we have. It's just, it's a very fulfilling experience.
It is. I think it's amazing too, like how helping other people or like helping them through their challenges, it even helps me realize, areas of growth for myself. And I think that that's the part that I think is really hard, is to, understand that you are still human, you're still growing, but you're also helping other people grow. So that balance of being a student of life, but also teaching other people as well. That's what I mean by it's really hard.
Yeah. I love that. I think too, with coaching, every single time I have a coaching session with people, I teach a lot of lessons in my coaching. I think everyone has their own coaching style, but it's like the more I teach these concepts and the more I teach foundations and the more I share the knowledge with other people, the more things open up in my own brain. And the more I'm like, I really get that now, because it's like to teach it is just like learning on a whole new, different dynamic level, right? There's so much expansion in that way too. And I think since I'm a little bit of like a growth junkie, it's like kind of addicting. Like, oh, I'm seeing growth for myself there too. Cause it's a little selfish, but at the same time, it's not,
I also love to like working with students and like seeing their different perspectives. Cause, a student may struggle with something or like have a strength in an area that I struggled with. And I'm like, oh, just to have that different perspective, and it stretches me it like helps me grow as a coach, to coach them through something that I may not have experienced or I don't, feel a connection to, or, so it definitely helps me grow in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the number one piece of advice you give to somebody who is thinking about opening a salon?
I would say have a very strong why, because there are going to be times where it's hard and you're going to question yourself and be like, why the hell am I doing this? And to go back to your whys and to see if they still resonate with you. I know a lot of times for me that there were times where I'm like, why am I doing this? And when I go back to my journal and I'm like, and I read why I started, it does get me back on track. And maybe it won't motivate you, and that's okay. And that's when you know that it's time to like maybe change directions. So have a really strong why.
I love that. And then for somebody who is currently a salon owner and is on the struggle bus, what is the number one advice you have for them since you've been there?
I would say at that point, if you're struggling, you definitely know how you don't want to feel. Start to identify what you can do to make shifts in that area, but also start to tap into how you do want to feel, because I think that sometimes I meet people all the time where their whole life is centered around what they don't want. And just because you're living your life that way doesn't mean it's putting you closer to what you actually do want. So start to lean more into what you actually do want. And I think that, as you start to acknowledge that and follow that, I think you'll be led to happiness,
I love that. And then somebody who is on the fence, who is thinking about signing up for coaching, but they're like, they just can't pull the trigger. What's your advice to them?
I would honestly say do it, just because that was me. I didn't know. I had decision fatigue when it came to coaching. I didn't know who to pick, how much money was appropriate, what the going rate of coaching was. So I just kind of put it in the hands of the universe. I'm like, I'm just going to sign up. And if I don't like it, I can quit after a month. And I will say by probably month 2, I was to the point where I was like, I don't even care how much this costs at this point. I'm just going to work extra if I need to, because this is valuable to me. So
that's how I was too. I was like, I can't miss coaching. Even through COVID, I was like, sign me up. I need to come back. Yes,
exactly. So it's definitely valuable. Just try it. You really have nothing to lose. Even if you sign up for 1 month and you're like, I don't like it, at least now you know you don't like it. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find you?
All over the internet. No, I'm just joking. You can find me on destroythehairdresser.com/MJ if you're interested in coaching. On Instagram, mjbeauty.co, or my hair salon, palettehairsalon.com.
Love it.
So yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for being on today's show and sharing your insight and knowledge and your experience. And I appreciate you so much.
Of course.
Thanks for tuning into the Elevate podcast. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. The Elevate podcast is hosted by me, Patricia Nowakowski, and produced by Opulent Beauty Pro. To receive my free business guides, visit opulentbeautypro.com/free or click the link in the show notes. You can find me on Instagram at Opulent Beauty Pro or at Patricia_Nowakowski_OBS. If you love this show, please consider subscribing. See you next week.